Hi there. Um, so, a friend of mine wrote this book. Her name is Starr Saffa. Starr Saffa. And the book is called The Living Truth of Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn. And I got my copy on Amazon, through Amazon. And I got it a couple of months ago. I wanted to write a review. It was for starters, my review is I love the book. It's fabulous. It's just a great, as an object, an art object. It's fabulous, and as a book and its theme. Oh, there's a picture of Starr. That's Starr. It's a very challenging and ambitious project that she's undertaken. So I'm going to try and give a quick review. In trying to write it, because of the written medium, it was having a few challenges, because the written medium is a specific style. It's very sort of combative. You're trying to make a point, you're trying to keep people interested in a sort of a quasi-linear fashion. You can write, different styles, but review is usually that way. However, there's more to the book than the linear, and that's what made it fascinating, because it just did. So that way, if you want to know the review, love it, get it, tell your friends, pick it up while you can. Nice thing on the back here. There's Starr again. This is a picture of well, I don't know that it's an actual picture. I think it may be, of Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn, and I'll give you a brief review of what I found interesting and what some of the challenges are. Okay, for starters, Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn is a historical figure from the mid-1800s in Persia, in Iran. It was called Persia at the time. And she was a prodigy in her own right. She was quite celebrated in her time as a poet, as a thinker, as a discusser of religious issues relating to the Quran. And it's the year 2020, and if you take a look at Iran nowadays, and it seems kind of like dark and backwards, patriarchal, and how would you say, oppressive to women, it was exactly the same 100 and whatever years ago, 170 years ago, which is when she emerged. And one of the things she's famous for is her poetry in Iran and outside of Iran, in that area. A lot of it lost because of the circumstances. Also, she was involved in the early origins of the Baha'i faith, B-A-H-A-I. And she was, in that early history of the Baha'i faith, which started with a gentleman called the Bab, it was a very tumultuous beginning with lots of bloodshed. It's part of Persian history. Maybe some people would rather not remember it, but it's actively in living today under the name Baha'i faith. That's how Baha'i sees it. And so Tahirih was one of the original believers or participants in the beginnings of the Babi religion, and she was killed. And when she was dying, she was famous because she had taken off her veil at a certain point, which was completely crazy at the time, and she sort of upset the apple cart in a big way, and she was put to death. She was stuck in a well and stoned and buried with stones. Kind of horrible. Anyway, so, and then time moved on. A lot of things going on in the world, and since you might say, oh, that's kind of interesting, obscure kind of thing from the mid-1800s, but the angle on this book here that Starr is bringing out is a contemporary channeling, if you will, of this person who many people at her time, she had followers that thought she was an incarnation, like a prophet, like a messenger of God, and I leave that for your consideration. This is the general terrain that Starr covers in the book. It's a combination of historical information and backstory about who Tahirih was in her time, um, presentation of some of her poems, but also Starr, like many great artists in her time at this time, has fallen so in love and become so attuned to Tahirih and the spirit that she released, that Starr has made herself available to be the voice of Tahirih at this time. So, if you're, say, an a-religious person, a New Age kind of person that is into source and higher self and positivity, and the idea that it's accessible to all people, and you have done away with intermediaries, if you've done away with the need for a prophet or a guru between you and your higher self, then this book brings to you an affirmation and a tale of a person who gave her life to announce that, yes, indeed, this is the age of the end of patriarchy, patriarchal orientation to divinity. In fact, one of the coinages, I don't know that Starr originated it, I think she gives an attribution for it, but instead of matriarchy or patriarchy, what she's claiming is that this is the age of holyarchy, the holistic coming together of the male and female principles, and that essentially we have matured and are now at a time of being able to connect directly with source, and our gender sense of separation is no longer the correct orientation. It is rather the intertwining of the female and the male, and that they're in fact meant to be one. And Starr goes into this at some level. Then, if you're most likely of the folks that have heard of Tahirih, they will have had some relationship probably to knowing something about the Baha'i faith. And so, myself as a Baha'i, the Baha'i faith has some very clear teachings within it, very open. At the same time, it's also has some very definite ideas about the communication of spiritual information. And what's interesting is that Starr is presenting something that falls outside of the framework of that model, as I understand it anyway. She's essentially going back in time. If you look at it, one of two things is the case. Either Starr is currently channeling the spirit of Tahirih at this time, and so speaking with that kind of knowing, or also, possibly, she goes back in time and is looking through contemporary eyes at what was overlooked at the time because of the dominance of the patriarchal model. So, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, very male heavy, and the Baha'i faith also, turns out, the Baha'i faith promoted, Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of the Baha'i faith, promoted the equality of men and women. And yet, the central figures are male. And one, as a Baha'i, one looks back and goes, well, this was a great advance. At least the spiritual principle has been announced of equality of men and women. At this point in time, Starr's angle a bit is she goes back and makes a reassessment and says, hey, you know what? Here's this other way of looking at it. Okay, I don't know. That's you have to. You could Google up Baha'i faith or Tahirih, and Qurratu'l Ayn was a title that she had. Tahirih was also a title. So you get that backstory about her. Then at the same time, in the book, Starr is also familiar with, she's the Sephir, I think it's called Sephir, the Kabbalah tree. The ideas that Starr attributes to Tahirih's emergence in the 1800s is the elimination of a division between source, the divine, however you want to configure it, and yourself. There's no need. You can have direct connection, so you can have direct knowing to act in the world in your highest divine state. Since the 1800s, this is pretty much sort of what happens with the New Age thing. But also turns out it's part of ancient mystical teachings, whether Gnostic Christianity, or there's always been aspects, Sufi mysticism in Islam. Every major religion has had a mystical sort of quasi-heretical take for the orthodoxy, or the people that run the show, that do the religion business. Anyway, so she makes these correlations with that. Also, there's a lot, and what made it hard to write about the book is that you're reading fact information and, you know, educational stuff and the backstory and the theories that Starr has, but also Starr is communicating through graphic artwork among things. She brings to it poetry, pictures. She's done a couple of movies, and all this is sort of brought together, and they're all ways of knowing. So it kind of pops the information. It's not meant to be just one single font, left brain attempt to get you to do something, because that's not even kind of the way the book reads. The book is her celebration of the spirit of Tahirih and her desire to share with people that don't know more about what this amazing woman did. And this person, Tahirih, is a prime heroine within the Baha'i faith characters of heroes and founders of the religion. She gets into a little bit of sort of obscure, not obscure, I mean, you can probably look them up online a bit, but there are some texts with Arabic words. So in a similar way, if you read something about with a Hindu orientation or a Chinese orientation or whatever it is, there's a flavor of the land of origin. There's some of that flavor in here, and that flavor is primarily Persian. But a lot of folks have become familiar with like Rumi and the word Sufism, so it's not that far off that it should be difficult. Then also among the things she's done, and what she's been working on trying to serve the memory or the living truth of Tahirih. I don't know, 10, 20 years. She had a sort of epiphany, a revelation of an insight, a desire, and along the way she has done a number of things. So in here contains some of her earlier work called the Tahirih Path, which are suggestions, list of sort of like ways that you can approach your source unleashment. She's done a number of songs and song lyrics that are contained in here, and you can see them, you know, you can go to YouTube and look them up, but the lyrics are here. And so the lyrics are also content, but they're not, you know, they're not left brain prose content, they're lyrics, and they inform the rest, as do the pictures she's included and things of this nature. Also, you'll find out about empowerment techniques that one can use within this framework. It's not summarizable, because that's why it's been published this way. She went through a lot of effort to graphically lay out the book, and you can see it's, you know, it punctuates with, yeah, what is that image there? Oh yeah, and she's done movies, so there's some scenes from a Tahirih movie she did. So basically, Starr is loving herself some Tahirih and offering whoever's interested. You see, look, Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn, Iran's most glorious and powerful female. What's the quote? I am the word that shall put to flight the chiefs and nobles of the earth. Yeah. And so it's basically, if you've never heard of Tahirih, that is unfortunate. This would be a great introduction. For those who are, who like to be historicists and nitpickers, the book is footnoted, has bibliographical references, but I would say that there is, because of modern times and history, it's just how does one get historical data points and information? But luckily in this age, people don't care about that anymore, really. But given the available material, Starr has presented it in such a way that you go, wow, interesting. And you can find out about Tahirih. You can then do more research if you want. Or I think the purpose of the book and the purpose of the message that Starr is putting out is saying, hey, whoever you are, this spiritual powerhouse, Tahirih Qurratu'l Ayn, TQA is a you'll see TQA throughout. Came specifically, or manifested, or presented, or channeled herself, or embodied Godhead is kind of where she goes with it. Which, you know, it's up to you what that means and how you take it. But it worked for me. It was interesting. It was great. I enjoyed it. But that basically Tahirih is saying, you are the best. You and we are part of this amazing thing. And so it ties in with a strain of religion that most people don't associate with it, but also Starr is trying to identify a major break or transition with, like we talked about, patriarchy, and not doing matriarchy, but doing that. There was this blending, and that has to do with Tahirih and the Bab that were at the beginning of the Baha'i story. So, and if you don't know the Baha'i story, I think you can still enjoy it. You'll get a whole bunch out of it, just for the sheer beauty of the artwork. I mean, I was so impressed, and it's so cool, and it's so authentic and real. See, 20 points for humanity's advancement, the Tahirih path. So there's a number of different things going on in the book. So to pick one thing or one angle or critique a thing, there's a belief structure. I roll the way I roll, but in reading this, it made me feel happy. So if you like to be happy, and who doesn't want a green-spined, green-bound this? Look at that. Wow. Anyway, I don't know if that's helpful, but otherwise I won't be able to. I keep trying to think about putting in the pen, but it's not about theological discussions, but there is theology. Oh, and that's one of the things she has a number of coinages which are very impressive, and maybe she's pulled them together in this way. So instead of theology, THEO, it's theology, like Thea, like meaning the female divinity, as opposed to theos, stuff like that. So it's got a whole bunch of interesting stuff. If you're a creative thinker and you like to play in the spiritual realm with yourself, or not with yourself, sorry. I mean, if you enjoy playing in the spiritual realm, I think you'll enjoy this. Amazon, I give it, I don't know, how do they do? 5 stars? 4 stars? 5 stars? I give it 6 stars, okay? For Starr. Hey, Starr. If you're watching this, Starr, oh my God, I hope I said something good. Anyway, I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot. I'm going to click off now.